Hello, my name is Bea Cupin, and you are watching Rappler. A lot of promises were made when Donald J. Trump sought to return to the White House in the 2024 U.S. presidential elections. In his first week of office, President Trump and his administration have boasted of keeping these promises. To discuss these, from the 90-day pause on foreign aid, Trump's immigration policies, and the future of the United States relationship with the Indo-Pacific and, of course, its treaty ally, the Philippines. We have as our guest on today's edition of Rappler Talk none other than the Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Jose Manuel Romualdez. Thank you for joining us, Ambassador. It has been a crazy week, I'm sure, in D.C.?
Yes, well, I wouldn't say crazy, but very anxiety, that is, because we want to see what the executive orders that's coming out of the White House and how it will affect, obviously, not only our relationship, but our fellow Filipinos who are living here in the United States.
Right, sir. Could you walk us through, because you have had the privilege of being there in D.C. as well during the first Trump administration. How different, how similar is it so far?
Well, I wouldn't want to say there's any really similarity because the Trump 01 obviously it was different then because President Trump, obviously, it was the first time he stepped into the White House. So the relationships that we've had during that time was challenging, mostly from our part, because it was President Dutertes who was our president at that time. But I was lucky enough that President Trump went to the Philippines for the ASEAN summit. And so that particular situation gave me an opening that the relationship started on the right foot. So, but now, because of the Trump 01, there's a lot more, I would say, President Trump himself said that he has learned a lot over the past 8 years, and he knows what to do. And I think that he has obviously been able to have a lot of those that he feels are not only loyal to him, but that will continue to do what he feels is his agenda for the next 4 years of his presidency.
Does that make your job easier, sir, or harder?
Well, I wouldn't want to say easier or harder. It's just that we need to reinvigorate or the lucky part, as I said, is because we know quite a number of those that have worked on the first Trump administration, and some of them are either going back or some of them are around and still very much involved in. I would say some of them are even close advisors of President Trump, and we know most of them. And we were able to find out exactly how we can interact with the new administration.
Yeah, you've mentioned it up top, sir, the rush to understand the deluge of orders, memorandums, and proclamations from the White House. But I want to take a step back and understand how Filipinos in the U.S. are absorbing all the information. Ano, sir, yung umaabot sa embassy at sa mga consulates natin ng mga top concerns of the diaspora there in the U.S.?
Well, obviously, the number one concern is the immigration policy. Every other person has relatives. I have relatives living here in the United States, and they have friends who are undocumented, and then there's anxiety. But as I've said on many occasions, and I just want to clarify this because I know that there are a number of people, some of our Philam lawyers, who are correcting me that you can't just simply tell them to leave.
Yeah.
My advice, my personal advice, and this is the advice of some of the people that we've talked to, is very simple. If you have a legal path, you do have rights. Yes, that is absolutely correct. They have rights before they just simply say we're leaving. If you want to go through that, that's fine. But you need to have good legal advice to be able to tell you on where it's going.
Yeah.
What my fear is all the time is that if you do not have a legal path and that you go through this process and you are detained, that is where the problem really comes, because you're treated like a prisoner. You're actually violated the laws of the United States by overstaying in the United States, and therefore you're here illegally, and therefore you're detained. And it depends on how your case is heard. And if we're talking about thousands that are now going through this process, we don't know how long you will be detained. That is why I'm saying that it's best to leave and you have better than even chance of being able to come back because you can file something that will make you legal. I mean, this is just my personal opinion, but confirmed by some of the lawyers that we've talked to that this is probably a good way to begin with, if there is really no legal path.
Sir, what has this meant naman for the embassy and our posts in the U.S., like in terms of manpower supporting these Filipinos who I guess now some of them are scrambling to understand ano ba yung legal path that they can take?
Well, that's why we have talked to quite a number of these film organizations, film lawyers or organizations that have come forward, and they have volunteered first and foremost to give us what are the rights that they have, and which we posted in our website, and then we've had discussions with our consulates from Guam all the way to New York. We have 7 consulates all over the United States. And how we can first and foremost give advice, and then we refer them obviously to some of these organizations that have come forward to try to help them in seeing how they can have a legal path.
Yeah.
But again, let me be very clear. We will definitely do what we can.
Yeah.
That is our job, to help any Filipino that comes to the embassy or to the consulates. We will do what we can to help them. Yeah. And obviously, the advice is what is more important than anything else.
Right.
And we will do that. And also remember that one of our a main function that I have is to have good relations with the government of the United States, so that it is easier for us to interact with them whenever we have these situations.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, they give us information on how many are already in custody and how many are to be deported. We've got the information. The first information we received is that 24 have been deported recently. This was even during the time of President Biden when they processed these deportees. So these are things that we will be able to get at the very least, and also an opportunity for our consulates, if they are in fact detained, so that we can go in and see how their conditions are whenever possible.
Right. We have have we gotten reports of Filipino nationals who have been arrested or detained under the new administration, sir?
Well, I wouldn't know whether they are, because most of these people, like for instance, as of the 16th of January, there are about 16 Filipino nationals that are now in custody. And out of that 16, 15 individuals have already been given deportation orders and are waiting for removal from the United States. There's only one individual who is fighting the case, and so it is a pending case that's now standing at this point in time. So this is the information that was given to us by the administration, and that's. But of course, the circumstances surrounding that is confidential, which they're not allowed to disclose.
Right. Sir, this is, siguro ito yung mga iniisip ng mga Filipinos here in the Philippines, no? Itong being stricter or making a show at least on being strict about immigration, issuance of visas, for instance, will this also affect, I wonder, kunwari, you want to apply for a tourist visa, a student visa to the United States?
Well, you just saw that I just came from the American University, and some of the professors there were telling me that they have stricter rules now that are being part of the executive order, that they will vet a little more students that apply for what I think they call it the F1 visa or the J1. These visas are going to be vetted, and to make sure that these are students sponsored and that they have no intention of staying in the United States. Because there are a number of students, while they're allowed after they finish or they graduate, they are allowed, I think, 1 or 2 years to be able to stay in the United States. But after that, they have to go.
Yes.
I think that these are things that are now still being studied by the Trump administration. But I think from the way we see it and from the conversations we have with some of the people in the universities, that they are going to be a little stricter when it comes to vetting students coming to the United States to study.
Right. For work visas naman, sir, will this also mean perhaps that Filipinos seeking jobs in the U.S., kahit nga not for immigration purposes, no, kahit temporarily lang, OFWs, will it be harder for them to,
Well, like I said, everything is very volatile in a
Right.
sense because of these new orders. So it will only the clarity will only come perhaps in a couple of months down the
Yeah.
road when it's clear what exactly the rules that have been put in place. But this doesn't mean that they're not going to accept any of these things
Yeah.
anymore. It's just going to be a little more different, I suppose.
Yeah.
Perhaps stricter. Some of it may even be easier. You don't know. We don't know that at all because I think that there is no question that this is a policy that President Trump has promised the voters, people who voted for him, and that's why he won the elections. One of the reasons why he won the election is because of the promise that he will do something about undocumented immigrants here in the United States.
Yeah, a win with huge support from the Phil-Am community as well. You've pointed that out before. Sir, another major announcement or move or action by the White House was to suspend foreign aid for at least 90 days, minimum of 90 days. How was this communicated to the embassy? And we've seen posts of NGOs in the Philippines getting notices that the funding will be paused immediately. How are we making sure that even as the U.S. reviews its programs under USAID, let's say, that, hindi mahihinder naman yung very crucial programs here in the Philippines funded by the U.S.?
Well, the only thing that we are doing at this point in time, obviously, is getting clarification from the State Department on exactly the parameters of the suspension and how, well, we know that it's going to be a 90-day suspension. Everything is being reviewed right now.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that the review will come quickly, especially for countries like the Philippines, where we have, obviously, we're very strong allies. And also, I think our relationship with the United States, it's one of its best at this point in time. So we're hoping that this type of situation will help speed up the review and that this will be reinstated as quickly as possible, especially those that are important, especially when it comes to the health, for instance. I think
education as well, sir.
Yes, but I think the number one is health because this is a matter of life and death.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that one. But on the military, I think we've been assured that this thing will continue because this is a commitment made. This is a long-term commitment, part of our mutual defense treaty, obviously, of course, agreement or EDCA. All of that is in place, and I think that one will. I would assume it will be reinstated quickly.
Yeah, and EDCA isn't exactly aid, right? It's a mutual.
It's a mutual agreement that we have with the United States.
Pero sir, yung $500 million naman dollars na foreign military financing, we also expect that we don't expect any stumbling blocks given this new executive order.
Well, that's already been implemented, the first tranche of that. It's the second one and the succeeding ones that we're working on with some of our friends in the U.S. Congress. They're confident that this eventually will be passed, the $500 million that we will be needing. And like the message that I've been giving out is very simple, really, is that we are trying to bump up or quickly get our armed forces up to speed. In other words, if we had a 5-10 year program, we'd like to shorten it by maybe make it down to 3 or 4 years, because even we, meaning the Philippine government, is also going to try to put up as much as we can in modernizing our armed forces so that we will be ready and become a real partner of our allies like the United States. And as I said, we're not here to beg or to ask for aid. We're here to just strengthen the relationship by being a real partner.
Right. So a lot of overthinking and analysis has been spewed out in understanding how Trump will interact with the Indo-Pacific and with the Philippines especially. I want to hear it from you yourself. You've spoken to him. You've spoken to the key people around him, his advisors. What's your sense of where the U.S.-Philippine bilateral relationship is going in terms of security, defense, the economy even?
Well, I think as far as the security and the defense, I don't see any major change because, first of all, the first Trump administration in 2016 was really during that time when our defense agreement.
Yes.
It was so an ironclad commitment. It was actually specified by then Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and it was started. That is really where the trajectory of our relationship in terms of our mutual defense treaty was promulgated, and it was continued on during the Biden administration, and we see that that will continue now. And we have, as I said, we have good bipartisan support from the U.S. Congress. The people who are now obviously running the security here in the United States, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, everyone knows his pronouncements and his feelings towards it's important that the presence of the United States will continue in the Indo-Pacific region. The same thing with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. So with that, we're quite clear on that one. Now, in the economic front, there will be a lot of, I would say, well, for lack of any other word, negotiations on how we can manage that one. And I think that there are opportunities that will be open to us. For instance, on the defense side, again, there are quite a number of things that we can do for the United States and manufacture it in the Philippines. Since their presence in the Indo-Pacific region is quite important. We're talking to some people on the defense manufacturing side to see how we can have some joint ventures on doing some of these things for the Philippines, and they're very amenable to it. This is actually an idea that was started by the people around President Trump himself. If you remember, we have a joint. It's like a joint venture, an investment made by Cerberus in the Subic shipyard. That's one area. That's a great example of how we can really move forward in terms of our relationship. I mean, the economic relationship.
How would that manifest as in arms manufacturing? Maybe parts will be made in the Philippines. Is that how we envision that?
Something to that effect, yes.
Yeah?
As a matter of fact, there's a company, Arms Corps is one that's already supplying the United States with some of these ammunitions that they're exporting. There are many other avenues where we can work together, as I said, and even in the other aspect of like the semiconductors, not everything needs to be manufactured in the United States. We're doing some of that already with American companies that are doing joint ventures in the Philippines. Kinetic Energy is another one of those.
Is that something that the Trump administration, you think, will want to pursue further with the Philippines?
Well, it is a matter of now us communicating that to the people that will be running the economic team of President Trump, that this is a mutually beneficial investment that we were putting up together with the United States. Again, it's like I always say, there is no such thing as a free lunch. It is a give and take. And people who have the wrong notion that, they should help us because they need us, that doesn't work that way. We may be needed now because of our geographical location, but it's also important that we have something to offer to anyone, not necessarily only the United States, but other countries as well, that we are asking to join forces with us in trying to keep the Indo-Pacific region, especially the South China Sea, free and clear from any influence of any country.
Now that you talk about the Indo-Pacific, sir, what's your sense of how the White House, how Trump will be interacting with China? A lot of analysts have called him transactional, therefore parang inspiring a tinge of worry with how the President Trump will be interacting with China, especially in the context of our issues with China in the West Philippine Sea. But how do you see it unfolding?
From my conversations with many of the people that Republicans and people that have worked with Republican presidents in the past, and the way they analyze how President Trump will conduct business with China, they see that the pushback or the trade, I don't want to say trade war, but trade negotiations between China and the United States will be a protracted one. In other words, there'll be a lot of these things that will be back and forth. And I think that at the end of the day, people who know President Trump, he will not back down on what he feels is best for the United States. He wants, as he says, he wants to win all the time. So it has to be a winning agreement with any country, and especially with China, whom he feels has taken advantage of many things from the United States in the past, especially in the technology sector.
Yeah, we expect tariff announcements the first week of February, isn't it?
I think
Tama ba?
there's a 10% tariff that's going to be slapped on the Chinese goods coming into the United States as
Yeah.
the first salvo.
Yeah. Sir, speaking of our neighbors in Asia, you mentioned actually in the forum at the American University, right, that you yourself have been the subject of Chinese attempts to extract information. How did that go, and what did we
No,
do?
extract information. My phone has been tapped a number of times already.
How do you handle that, sir?
We just try to do our best. I guess we can't use our phone the way we normally would like to. Changed my phone several times, and as I said, I kidded the Chinese ambassador in the Philippines. I said, "You have to stop doing this because I can't afford to keep on buying a new phone."
And how did he respond, sir?
Well, of course, he just laughed it off. But it is serious things. I mean, everybody knows that cyber security is a major problem right now in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And it's just, I guess it's just something that we just have to live with for now, but we have to fight back.
Yeah.
In the sense that we cannot allow this to just go unchecked.
Yeah, yeah. Sir, sorry, I'm going to jump again to defense and security. There's a lot of talk in the military, in the defense sector here in the Philippines about acquiring Typhoon or a Typhoon-like system. Are talks serious to get it from the U.S., or is it acquiring it, or is it a permanent or a semi-permanent deployment of the Typhoon here in the Philippines?
No, it is there for the exercises. And, I think Secretary Teodoro has indicated that he would like to have it remain in the Philippines for as long as possible. But we meaning the President Marcos himself also, is keen on being able to procure a number of these Typhoon medium-range missiles deployed in the Philippines. This is for defense purposes.
Yeah.
It's not. The range is not long enough to go on an offensive. It is more to defend ourselves from this type of potential conflict that may arise.
Yeah.
Well, quite honestly, the real dream that a country like ours, in spite of the fact that we have 7,600 islands, is what they call the Iron Dome that was used by Israel during the attack, when Iran was sent about 300 plus missiles, and they were able to almost 100%, they were not able to penetrate the Israel's airspace.
Yeah.
That is the technology that any country would like to see as part of their defense.
Would that be possible for us to get that? Is that even a discussion in the Philippines?
Well, it's an aspiration. You'll never know. Like I said, in this world, it's who you choose. It's the friends you choose.
Yeah.
Is what's important. And we've chosen to be with our allies and friends from the Western world, and also our friends from the Asian region, like South Korea and Japan. We're all in this together because we all feel the same way. We are like-minded countries.
Right. Speaking of multilateral cooperation, sir, another huge decision by the Trump administration is to withdraw from the World Health Organization and the Paris Agreement. I don't want to talk about the withdrawal itself, but the implications of it, sir. So ano yung discussions, I would imagine, among diplomats in Washington now? What are the implications of this? Because I think you've mentioned in previous interviews that you expect a country like China, perhaps, to step up, take on a bigger role in climate change mitigation, and global health even.
Well, there's always what do you call this, a vacuum that can be created. WHO obviously is a very important organization, and I think that the Philippines is one of those that's important for us. In fact, they have headquarters. They have headquarters in the Philippines.
Yeah.
But this is a decision made by the Trump administration. They feel that again they're being had in the sense that they contribute more, and other countries are not contributing their share. So maybe he's right, but whatever it is, we have to just adjust accordingly. Like I always, another saying is that there's nothing permanent in this world except change, and so we have to be flexible. We have to be able to be, and we're known to be resilient. So we just have to make do with whatever comes our way, and try to look for other avenues, look for other friends in the global community, and see how we can work with them, especially when it comes to the health issues. Now, in climate change, it is almost certain that China will take up, will be the leader, because they've already very much advanced into doing a lot of the alternate energy right now, clean energy, that is. And so they most likely will be the leader in this one, and that's one thing that we have to try to continue to work with China.
Yeah.
Our issue with China is only the South China Sea, but the economic front and in many other areas, we want to work with China in every way we can. And hopefully, again, another aspiration is that the issues surrounding the South China Sea will be resolved peacefully, as we've always hoped that it will be, and pray so. Our Undersecretary Tess Lazaro has been working very closely with the Chinese counterpart, trying to find solutions into how we can peacefully just live the way it is at this point in time until a permanent solution can be found.
Yeah, not an enviable job trying to manage the China relationship from here in Manila. Sir, I am sorry, but I'll have to jump into some theoreticals. If you could help us unpack legislation before the U.S. Congress on sanctions against the ICC. I understand, though, just a few hours ago, the U.S. Senate already voted against it. But if I'm understanding this correctly, if it's reintroduced and if some of the same language and provisions still make it to approved by the House, and if the Senate approves this, the original measure indicates that it also covers allies like the Philippines. What does it mean for us then? Like, would it mean that, I guess people here in the Philippines are wondering, would it cover former President Rodrigo Duterte, for instance, if he visits the U.S. or,
Well, we definitely have to study what the implications are, but I'm not a legal expert when it comes to the ICC, but there is a very strong push from many sectors of society to be members again of the ICC, for us to go back, and so there's a big debate that's going on right now. So we don't know where that is right now, but the only thing I can say is that President Marcos has made it very clear that we have our own justice system, but at the same time, we also would like to work with the international legal system, because we are part and parcel of the whole global community, and we cannot just isolate ourselves completely from any of these things. But all that will have to be decided at some point in time, whether we will go along with whatever the United States is doing, and whatever it is that comes our way is again a decision that we'll have to make, that is not only good for us, but good for being a good member of the international community.
So, sir, on that note, I'm just curious, like what's the workflow between the U.S. Embassy in the Philippine Embassy in DC and here in Manila? Like, there is a huge time difference. Magkabaliktad yung time zones natin, in fact. Like, are you constantly calling the president, for instance, or calling his key aides in Malacanang to consult? How does that work for you?
Well, I don't want to really discuss it, but I'm not trying to make myself look like I'm really somebody very important, but I do work quite a bit night and day, almost, precisely because of the change of time. But it's also because of the importance of what we're doing right now here in Washington. As a matter of fact, I've been postponing my schedule because I normally go back to Manila for consultations. And I'm hoping that we will be able to do that because, as I said, we were facing challenges like our phones being tapped and everything. So it's very difficult for us to really communicate really electronically. So it's always important that we do it personally, especially on very highly sensitive matters. Right. But we're doing what we can. The workflow is brutal, but we're adjusting to it as one can do. It is what it is, and we just do what we can. Because I think that I personally feel that this is something that we must do for our country.
Yeah.
And I feel honored that I'm doing it for us,
Yeah.
because it's our only country.
Yeah.
It's the only one we've got.
Yeah, the brutality of the work isn't showing naman, Ambassador. You brought up the importance of multilateral relationships.
No more hair.
The global community. Sir, right before Trump's inauguration, the Japanese foreign minister visited Manila, emphasizing the importance of the trilateral relationship. Of course, under former President Biden, we saw for the first time the trilateral summit between the U.S., the Philippines, and Japan. Sure, I would assume that we want this level of engagement to continue under President Trump. Have we spoken to the White House about this? And how does the White House even need convincing that this trilateral relationship is very important for the Indo-Pacific?
No, I don't think so. The Japanese foreign minister was here in Washington,
Yes.
D.C., at a meeting with Secretary Rubio. And from my conversations with the Japanese ambassador here in Washington, D.C., the meeting went well, and that they emphasized on the importance of the trilateral agreement that we have with the United States. And I think that will continue. We also had a meeting, Secretary Teodoro and I had a meeting with at the White House, at the West Wing, with National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and also the Deputy National Security Advisor Alex Wong. Both of them, we communicated to them how important it is that we continue with this trilateral agreement that we have with Japan. In fact, we want to expand it even further to have other countries that we can join in, because it's important that all like-minded countries really band together in this very important issue of having a free and clear Indo-Pacific region. It's very important because trillions of dollars pass through this our area in the Indo-Pacific region, and I think there are many countries that see the importance of this type of relationship that we are all putting together, so that there will be not one country that dominates the area.
Right, right. Sir, by other countries, are we talking about countries just within the region or even beyond the Indo-Pacific?
Well, we are talking to a lot of President Marcos has traveled extensively. He was even being criticized for it. But those trips are very important. As a matter of fact, I've been trying to convince him that he has to do a little more trips, in fact. But he wants to try to manage his travel, especially at this time, because of many challenges that we also face domestically.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's important that we have this person-to-person meeting. So we're hoping, of course, that person-to-person meeting with President Trump we're confident it will happen sooner than later, and that is an important part of our foreign relations.
Sir, I ask that because there have been proposals to say involve South Korea. I understand there is already a defense minister level engagement with what they're calling the Squad. Are there dreams perhaps of elevating that into a leaders level summit, a leaders level meeting?
Yes, there are. There's always that aspiration that we'd like to eventually crystallize that, having the heads of state meet some point in time. Again, we're doing what we can in terms of convincing our allies like the United States to take the lead on this one. We have a lot of supporters, as I said. I think that there is no question that that the Trump administration and now having the majority in the U.S. Congress, that they will see that this type of agreements, these multilateral agreements, are as important, just as important, and as mutually beneficial for not only the United States but for the world, for that matter.
Sir, finally, big picture, what's in store for bilateral ties between the Philippines and the U.S. in this year? I ask this because a lot happened under President Marcos and President Biden, right? Sabi nga ni SFA, Secretary of Foreign Affairs, hyperdrive yung relationship. We had several visits from the State Secretary, from the Secretary of Defense. And I understand that, like you said, we hope for a face-to-face meeting between Presidents Marcos and Trump sooner rather than later. But what other milestones are we looking forward to in 2025?
And I think the milestone is that the trilateral agreement that we have with Japan, for instance, could be expanded. And what I'm hearing is that there's there's appetite from the United States to continue that, and also, of course, our mutual defense treaty is now as clear as it can get. The exercises will become even more down the road. We see that. But the important one is the fact that I think the milestone, if you want to call it, is that in spite of the America First policy of the United States, I think that we are confident that we will be able to convince the Trump administration that having a strong economic partnership with the Philippines, a strong Philippines is a strong partner of the United States, and that is a message that we're putting forward here, because we need the resources to be able to buy more of what we need for our armed forces from the United States, who's our biggest, obviously, supplier of what we need to bump up our armed forces, precisely to become a real good partner.
Yeah, America First shouldn't mean disengagement from the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. That will mean more work for you.
Well, I guess I'm getting so used to it. Maybe sometimes my body looks for it already.
But it's meaningful work, sir, I'm sure.
Well, I'm like I said, when you're doing something good for the country, it makes you feel good, no matter what pressure or stress that brings you. But at the end of the day, it's always a good feeling. And I'll never forget what former ambassador to Japan, Ambassador Manuel Lopez, a good friend of mine, before I took on this job, because he was encouraging me, because he said, take it because it's very rewarding and very fruitful. And he was right. It is rewarding in the sense that it's when you feel that you're doing something good, it makes you feel good.
Right. And I think it's keeping
that's what
you
drives
young, sir.
you. Well, flattery will get you everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Ambassador Romualdez. I know it's a very, very busy time for the embassy there in DC. Thank you for watching. If you want to continue the discussion online, please hop on to the Rappler Communities app and join the Security and Global Affairs channel. This has been Bea Cupin. Thank you for watching Rappler.
Thank you.